If you feel like you're getting whiplash from all the economic news lately, you are definitely not alone. One day the headlines are all doom and gloom, and the next, they're painting this surprisingly sunny picture. So what is actually going on? Well, let's dive into all these mixed signals and, more importantly, figure out a clear plan to protect ourselves.
This is the big question, isn't it? It feels like we've been asking this for what, months? Maybe even years now. To really get to the bottom of it, we have to put on our detective hats and look at the clues the economy is giving us, because right now, those clues are pointing in completely different directions.
And here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. On one hand, companies have announced over 1 million job cuts just this year. That is a huge, scary number. But then on the other hand, the number of people filing for unemployment for the very first time just hit a 3-year low. I mean, how can both of these things be true at the exact same time? Okay, let's start digging.
So our first stop in this investigation is the job market. Jobs are really the bedrock of the economy. So figuring out what's happening here is absolutely critical to solving this whole mystery.
Remember that 1.17 million job cut number? Well, it gets even more alarming when you add some context. It's a staggering 54% increase in announced cuts compared to the same time last year. That is a massive jump, and it's a really clear warning sign that a lot of companies are getting pretty nervous.
So you're probably wondering, why aren't all these cuts showing up in the unemployment numbers? Well, it's because a lot of companies aren't doing those big, splashy mass layoffs. Instead, they're doing things more quietly, implementing hiring freezes, only replacing people who quit, and just letting their workforce shrink over time through attrition. So here's the bottom line. The job market is actually much, much tougher than that headline unemployment number makes it seem, especially if you're out there looking for a new job right now.
All right, let's move on to our next clue, which is inflation. We all feel it every single time we go to the grocery store or the gas station. But believe it or not, the official numbers here are just as confusing as the job market.
Now, before we dig into the numbers, it's really important to know what the experts are actually looking at. You might hear about the CPI on the news, but the U.S. Federal Reserve, the folks in charge of setting interest rates, they pay the closest attention to this metric, the Personal Consumption Expenditures, or PCE for short. This is their go-to gauge for inflation.
And here's what that PCE number is telling us. The Fed's target, kind of their happy place for inflation, is 2%. The latest reading? 2.8%. Now, while we are moving in the right direction, which is good, we're still well above that goal line. Prices are still climbing faster than the Fed wants them to.
So why does it feel like your personal budget is getting squeezed way more than that 2.8% number would suggest? Well, look at where the price hikes are happening. It's not in the fun, discretionary stuff like new TVs or vacations. Nope. It's in the absolute necessities: gas for your car, your rent or mortgage payment, your utility bills, and healthcare. These are all things you have to spend money on, and they're all getting more and more expensive.
Okay, this brings us to our final and, honestly, maybe the most important piece of evidence. Consumer spending makes up about 2/3 of the entire U.S. economy. So how people feel and what they actually do with their money, that's the ultimate verdict on where things are headed.
And the verdict is, yeah, not good. This number here is the Consumer Confidence Index, and it has fallen sharply to just 63.2. Now, to put that in perspective for you, any reading below 80 is historically considered a very strong signal that a recession is on the horizon, and we have been stuck in that territory for the last 10 months straight. So let's recap. We've got a confusing job market, we have stubborn inflation on all the stuff we need, and we have terrible consumer confidence. So how do we make sense of all this? The answer, the thing that makes all these contradictory clues suddenly click into place, is this concept, the K-shaped economy. A K-shaped economy basically means different groups are having wildly different experiences. Imagine the letter K. The top arm is going up, while the bottom arm is going down. The top 10% of earners, they're doing just fine, and they account for a whopping 50% of all consumer spending. Meanwhile, the other 90% of the population, that's the bottom arm of the K, they account for the other half, and they are the ones who are really feeling the squeeze.
And hey, this isn't just some abstract theory. You can see it playing out in the stock market in real time. While the overall markets had a pretty decent year, just look at the companies that cater to shoppers on a tight budget. Dollar General is up 75%, Dollar Tree is up 60%, and Walmart is up 27%. Their incredible outperformance is powerful proof that a huge chunk of the country is trading down and hunting for bargains.
Okay, so mystery solved. The mixed signals aren't a mistake. They're just a reflection of this K-shaped reality, where a lot of people are struggling while others are doing great. Understanding that is step one.
Step 2, and this is the most important part, is knowing what you can actually do about it. So let's build your financial defense plan.
This is where we turn all this information into action. Because in an uncertain environment like this one, having a clear, simple, and really solid strategy isn't just a good idea. It's absolutely essential for your peace of mind and your financial security, no matter which arm of that K you happen to be on.
The whole plan really just rests on 3 simple but super powerful pillars. First, secure your foundation. Build up an emergency fund with at least 6 months' worth of your expenses, and keep it somewhere safe and easy to access, like a high-yield savings account. This is your buffer against any job market craziness. Second, any money you know for sure you'll need in the next 5 years, for a car, a house down payment, whatever, that money needs to be isolated from the stock market, also in a safe account. And third, everything else, that's for the long term.
So what does invest for the long term actually look like? Well, this is a classic, simple, and really effective approach. A sample portfolio might have the core of it save 75% in a broad market index fund like the S&P 500. Then you'd add some global diversification with maybe 15% in international stocks and have about 10% in bonds to act as a stabilizer. The real key here is to apply a strategy like dollar cost averaging, which just means you're investing a set amount of money at regular intervals no matter what the market is doing.
This right here might be the single most important piece of financial advice there is. The secret to long-term success is to take fear and greed completely out of the equation. And that dollar cost averaging strategy we just talked about, it's the perfect way to enforce that discipline. It forces you to buy consistently, whether the market is up or down, which helps you stay the course and avoid making panicked emotional decisions based on scary headlines.
Now, for some people, it might make sense to have a small insurance policy against any major downturns. This could be a small allocation to things like precious metals, but the crucial point here is to view these not as your primary investments for growth, but as a small, separate hedge to protect against the downside, if that fits your personal risk tolerance and strategy.
So, as we wrap things up, I'll just leave you with this question. The economic signals are probably going to stay mixed for a while, but that doesn't mean you have to be confused or worried. By understanding this K-shaped reality and focusing on these simple defensive pillars, you can build a financial plan that's strong enough to weather any storm. So, how prepared are you?